All right. Hello again, Avengers, and welcome to another exciting daily vlog. This is the daily vlog 2025, number 138. And I have yet again forgot to get my drink. That was a lot smoother than it normally goes. All right, so today I saw something fascinating, and my brain is still not working today. I have been fighting off a migraine all day, and so this is the only thing my brain can come up with. So that's what you guys get. Some dude on Reddit or dudette, I have no idea. I will use the non-gender specific term dude. Some dude on Reddit created a quote-unquote actual random number generator. And in order to understand why that matters, we have to talk about the fact that something that we use in tabletop RPGs to introduce randomness and chaos actually technically is neither of those things, and that is dice rolls. If anyone is unaware, and this is something that tends to be a little bit more, or technically a lot more important in the world of computers than it does in the world of like tabletop RPGs and board games and stuff like that. And that is the idea of a truly random number. And something that a lot of people don't realize is most people think rolling a die is a random process. It will get you a random number. And it actually won't by definition. Because it's not actually selecting a random number. What it is it's using a little bit of physics to decide a number. But that decision actually isn't random. And the reason that it's not considered quote-unquote random is because it's entirely predictable. Now, that is a slight misnomer, because in order to predict what number will come up when you roll a die, you actually have to have a gratuitous amount of information. Everything to the die itself and how it may be weighted and the things like that. You have to know the surface that it's rolling on. You also have to know what's happening when it's getting rolled, whether it's being put through a dice tower, it's being thrown by someone, if it's being deflected off of a surface. Like, for craps tables, when you roll the dice, they have to hit off the back wall. Stuff like that. But if you were able to get all of that information, and there all are ways to control a lot of those the things, whether you're using specific controls on how the die is dropped or any thing like that. Like, there are ways to control a lot of those variables so that you can actually get an accurate measurement. If you could control for all those variables, you could predict, or you could calculate, not predict. You could actually calculate every single roll that a die does before it's rolled. So while we use it as an attempt to, effectively, dice in general are random number generators. As far as how they're used in tabletop RPGs, they're actually not random. They're entirely predictable. When we start getting to, like, another thing that people are, it's like, well, then use dice rollers. Dice rollers, there's no computers there's no physics involved in a dice roller. That's literally just random number generation. And again, by definition, it can't be. Because a dice roller or other forms of random number generation in computers are, again, entirely predictable. They're technically easier to predict than dice rolls. And the reason why is they're a computer program. They have been programmed to come up with a certain set of numbers. The ways that random number generators, things like dice rollers or just any sort of random number generator works are varied. Like there's a bunch of different ways that you can do it. One of the more common ways is to use what's called a seed, where a seed is just a collection of numbers that have been generated in some way, shape, or form. That the random number generator will do something to those numbers or use those numbers in some way to come up with their result. But again, that means that the random number generator is based entirely on the seed. So if you know the seed, you can predict every single result that comes out of the random number generator. Because again, it's all just an algebraic equation. Like that's all it is. It's just a bunch of equations. So dice rollers are not quote unquote truly random. Neither are the vast majority of random number generators. And seeds are not the only way that random number generators create things. There are some that will take numbers from like your phone. Like if you have some sort of random number generator on your phone, it needs something to plug into the equation, because all computer-based random number generators are an equation, and they need something to plug into it. And so the thing that makes them quote unquote random or not is going to be the number that you're plugging in, the seed that they're using. And how they generate that seed can be done a bunch of different ways. One of the ways it's becoming slightly more common, because it gives you a much closer a much closer access to truly random, is taking measurements from like random measurements from the temperature of your phone, but not like 74 degrees Celsius or something like that. No, what they will do is they will measure the temperature out to like 11, 12, 13 decimal places and take that 13th one, because no matter what you do, we simply do not have the ability and accuracy to control numbers that small, or they'll use your accelerometer or something like that. And that gets closer and closer to true random numbers. Well, what this particular random number generator, which is specifically designed for tabletop RPGs, it was on r/D&D. The way that it works is it generates its seed effectively from, it has a Geiger counter attached to it. And the Geiger counter just measures the random background radiation of the universe. For anyone that doesn't know, and everyone thinks that radiation is absolutely everywhere. And you can measure it. It's very, very low. And it's not dangerous to humans. There's tons of types of radiation that at very, very low levels are completely harmless to humans and life in general. And so what this particular random number generator does is it uses a Geiger counter that's specifically attuned to measure the just standard background radiation in any given point, and will just randomly decide on a value at a given point. And that gets about as close to true random number generation as we can get, because the fluctuations of the kind of universal background radiation of the universe, to my understanding, are not predictable and are not controllable. Like, we can't actually control that because we don't actually know what causes it. And as far as I'm aware, it's not a predictable number. Like, we know the rough levels, but there's no equation that you can plug in for a date and time to be able to go, oh, the background radiation for this date and this time is going to be this exactly. It's just not how it works. So that is as close to true random numbers that you're probably ever going to find for a tabletop RPG. Now, None of this stuff actually really matters for tabletop RPGs, because in order for a tabletop RPG to be fun, you actually don't need true random number generation. And I am going to posit um, actual, real random number generation in a tabletop RPG is less fun. And the reason why is everybody learns which dice they like and which dice they don't. And most people, after you've been playing long enough, you will have a favorite die of some sort. And that favorite die will be your favorite die because it gives you the rolls that you want. Now, a lot of that is selective memory. Dice are a lot more random than some people will give them credit for, but they're not completely random. They do have tendencies. Like a really great example, I read this article recently where they were talking about how random is a D20, and depending on the manufacturer, they found this one manufacturer who their kind of slogan is that they give you the most accurate dice, meaning the ones that are the closest to random. And what they were able to find is that die, for almost every face, followed the natural random progression that you would see. If anyone was unaware, the likelihood of choosing any one number out of 20 numbers is 1 in 20 or 5%. So if you roll a d20 100 times, each face should be rolled 5 times. And for this particular dice manufacturer, it was actually really, really close to that. Almost every single face was right around that 5% mark, except 14, which was rolled, I can't remember if it was 40% lower or 40% higher than it was supposed to be. I think it was 40% lower. And the way they were able to kind of explain why it was just this face that was rolling so differently is because the dice, they're resin dice. And resin dice are made through resin molding. Basically, just like I mentioned before, die cast molding, where you inject hot metal into a mold and then you take it out. Resin molding works the same way. It's just resin is liquid at a significantly lower temperature. And so it's significant. It's also a lot cheaper than metal too. So it's a lot cheaper and easier to do molding with. So resin molding, for this particular company, when the die comes out of the mold, it has to be injected somewhere and there has to be a seam to the mold. And apparently that seam and the injection point or something to that effect is right on the 7 face, which is on the opposite side of the 14 face. Or the 6 face, something like that. So whatever the one on the opposite side. And so because of that, that particular side is weighted slightly different because there was a seam there. Now, if you go to other things like a D6, well, the way that traditional D6s work is each one of the pips is actually drilled into the die. So 6 and 1 are always on opposite sides. For anyone who doesn't know, if you ever want to see if dice are cheating, opposite sides should add up to 7, if I remember correctly. So on a D6. Because there is less mass on the 6 face, because there's 6 little divots instead of just one little divot, technically the 6th face is lighter than the 1 face. So again, finding ways to create perfectly balanced dice and stuff like that, it isn't a real thing. Like there's always going to be stuff that's going to make them not 100% true. Where random number generation actually does matter, again, is generally in computers, specifically in security systems. Things like SSL encryption, which is encryption over the internet so that people can't effectively kind of eavesdrop on what you're doing, which is 100% a thing. That's how People can get passwords and other things like that. There are many, many other ways that they can do that, but effectively eavesdropping on what you're doing is one of the ways that they can do that. And there's a bunch of different ways to eavesdrop on a computer. You can have like a keylogger or something installed in the computer, or you can just through the internet hack into the signal, and that's what SSL encryption is meant to prevent. Well, the thing is, the way that encryption works is it randomizes the signal so that if anyone tries to read the signal other than you and the website you're going at, they get just a bunch of random noise that doesn't make any sense and is completely incomprehensible. The reason that you don't get random noise and the website doesn't get random noise is you have an encryption key. Basically just a little thing that tells the computer, oh, this is what all this random noise means. And if someone can get that encryption key, they can translate the random noise. So generating these encryption keys requires the use of a random number generator. But if you're using like a traditional random number generator that uses some kind of a seed, well, the seeds that are generated, if a nefarious actor can somehow find a way to figure out how those seeds are generated, your encryption is completely worthless. And so creating true random numbers is something in the security industry that is really, really important. And there is a company, I cannot remember what the company's name is. I watched an entire video about this company, and it's absolutely fascinating. I think they're one of the like big names in SSL. Yeah, is that it? SSL encryption? Yeah, there we go. Somebody knows the company. Put it in the comments down below because again, my brain just doesn't remember proper nouns. But the way that they generate their encryption keys and stuff like that is by using lava lamps. You're like, wait a minute, what they've done is they have an entire wall that is just lava lamps. And if you have no idea what a lava lamp is, it is really, really simple. It's a liquid that has a slightly more dense liquid inside of it. That when the liquid is when the denser liquid is heated, it's two liquids that don't mix. That's the important part. They don't mix like oil and water. And basically, what happens is when you heat or cool anything, something hot becomes less dense because the molecules in it start moving faster. That's what heat energy is. It's just more movement. And when it gets colder, it gets less dense. And so the density of these liquids are put in a way that the inner liquid, when it's heated, will become less dense and it will float up. And then as it cools, it will float back down. So you get this weird thing where it looks like little bits of lava are just kind of going around in this. They were real popular in the 70s. Anyway, this company has just a wall of lava lamps with a camera set up and windows next to it. And what they do is the camera is designed to measure like every pixel, and they're all different colors in that, every pixel, every movement of light and everything like that, and translate them into numbers to generate keys. And because there are so many different lava lamps and there's so many other factors that are in there, and they're calculating so many different things, including calculations from the camera itself not giving a perfect symbol. So every so often it will have a fuzzy spot in there that gets translated differently than if it was clear. Because there are so many different things in there that no one can control, it gives one of the closest representations to true random number generation that currently exists. And it's not the only method that this group uses. They use radiation decay measures and all these other, like, just things where if you measure something to a small enough degree or have enough random variables in there that you can't control, it becomes unpredictable. There's no possible way that you can predict what any individual key is going to have, and that is as close as we can come to true random number generation. Like I said, I have been very, very sick all day, still not feeling great, to be perfectly honest. But I read this article, or no, I saw that post on Reddit, and it put me into a deep dive, and I find this absolutely fascinating. I think it is genuinely one of the more interesting things, especially if, like me, you don't really deal with high-end encryption on a regular basis or anything that would actually require true random numbers. You just think, oh, it's a D20. That's a random number. Nope, it's not. It's entirely predictable. It's also not chaotic in any way, shape, or form because, again, it's entirely predictable. But a wall of lava lamps viewed by kind of a weird-ish camera with random beams of light all over it, that is pretty damn close to truly random. And I find that fascinating. Interested to hear from you guys. First of all, do we have any security people in the audience that have actually had to deal with random number generation for whatever reason? Whether you're talking about, like I said, it's used in internet security. It's used in just about everything. As far as security is concerned. So random number generators is really, really big in the security industry. So I'd love to hear if anyone here, especially if you've worked like with credit card companies or credit card terminals and stuff like that. Like all that stuff has crazy encryption and security features that are sometimes very, very good, and a lot of times are just good enough to make it not worth trying to crack them. Which is the true goal of security. If anyone thinks that the true goal of security is to secure things, it's not. Because actually making something completely secure is nearly impossible. And the trade-offs you get for making something truly secure. Like if I wanted to have like a key to my house and I wanted to make sure that no one can get it, it's actually a relatively simple process. If I take the key and I encase it in metal, and then drop that metal into like a metal cube that has my key in the center, and then I drop that cube to the bottom of the Marianas Trench. That's about as good as it's going to get for just being completely inaccessible. Like there's just no way to get it. Or if I drill into the earth and bury it, maybe 1,000 miles beneath the earth, which you've never actually gotten that far before. That would be secure, but then I couldn't use it either. And that's always the trade-off you get with security. So first of all, any security people or anyone that actually has to deal with computer programs or whatever, has to deal with true random number generation, let me know in the comments down below. And then for the rest of us that don't have to do with that, first of all, were you aware that D20s are not random in any way, shape, or form? By definition. And have you ever thought about true random number generation? Again, leave it in the comments down below. Otherwise, again, it's all for me today. I will see you guys next time. All right? Bye-bye.